without 20 miles open water. We wanted to have gas for our outboard, like the fish buying barn would give us 2.5 gallons gas because we want a fishing boat. Because we weren't a fishing boat.
Okay, great. I will call this meeting of the Port of Olympia Commission to order. We have a short agenda today. What would you like to start? Commissioner Hanson?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Looks like we have agenda before us. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner, a point of order, staff would like to request that we remove item H4 from this consent calendar and be moved to another meeting night. There's just it's a topic that deserves further conversation before it's brought before the commission on consent.
Understood. Do you have a motion?
A motion to strike H4 from the agenda.
Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion is passed. That number 4 has been removed from the consent calendar, and we will move to the executive director report.
Hey, thank you, commissioners. Whoop, sorry, a little fast there on the thumb. Okay, there we go. This past week, the port hosted the Thurston County Rescue Dive Team, which is a multi-agency unit that specializes in underwater search and rescue. The recent training focused on recovery operations using specialized equipment and divers operating at depths to 30 to 48 feet in challenging underwater conditions. We were excited to have them come out to the marine terminal and take advantage of the depths at the marine terminal to do this kind of training. Last week, we also hosted 16 students from Tumwater School District's Forest and Stream Ecology CTE summer course. They came for a tour of the whole Port Peninsula. So they explored the Billy Frank Jr. Trail, went along Swantown Marina, visited North Point to learn about the Cascade Pole site, and toured the Marine Terminal's stormwater treatment facility. We really appreciate Weyerhaeuser, who came and joined the visit and shared insights about the timber industry with the students. And we're excited again to host the students and be part of their learning. Summer Nights at the Port have begun. We hosted the first of 2 Summer Nights at the Port concerts. Lake Fair was happening at the same time, and downtown was really a place where everybody was. We were also excited that there was an opening band going for bronze, which includes one of our Marine Terminal maintenance team members, Frank Voss, playing on the bass guitar. So we were very excited about that. We really appreciate all the port staff that works hard to prepare for these community events, and we really appreciate Commissioner Tupas coming out and giving some opening remarks at our first concert of the series. There are, I guess our next show is on August 7th, and it's a 90s tribute band called 90s Rewind. And as always, there's information available on the port's website. Whoop, Missy?
I'm sorry. It's good.
Thank you. And then the Lake Fair Parade was over the weekend. Port commissioners participated in the parade and recognized for their service to the community. And you see there, Commissioner Hanson and his son were riding along in the parade and had a chance to wave at the crowd and everybody see them in their role as port commissioners. So we're again excited to have our port commissioners participate in Lake Fair, a great community event. Let's see, Historic Maritime Foundation hearing. So last week there was also a hearing to take the historic Sandman tug off the City of Olympia Historic Register. The goal of doing that was then to allow the Sandman, which is not in a position to be put back into the water and repaired and basically recovered to the point where it could be put back in the water. We wanted to, we have a plan to dismantle the Sandman and carefully dismantle it and have the artifacts go to appropriate organizations, which will help preserve and highlight the historic nature of the Sandman tug. So the Heritage Commission approved the delisting of the Sandman and endorsed the port's plan. We're working with the Historic Maritime Foundation on our plan. And we actually have applications on our port website for Sandman artifacts. And again, the goal is to find folks who will sort of do right by the legacy of the Sandman and how they use and display the artifacts. So if anybody's interested, please go to the port website and you can see the application there as well as more information about the Sandman. Also this past week, our Harbor Master Damien Egan attended a retirement party for one of the Harbor Patrol commanders, Darlene Helwig. Darlene has volunteered with the Harbor Patrol since 2003 and was the main on-water trainer and the longest serving active volunteer. So on behalf of the Port of Olympia, we really appreciate her role in the Harbor Patrol and excited to be able to share in the celebration of her. And then we are always, or not always, but until the end of this month, we are looking for Port of Olympia Community Advisory Committee members. We really encourage folks to apply from all of the districts throughout Thurston County. And if you go to our website, you can find the application and more information about what it entails to be on this Community Advisory Committee. And as always, we value your input. Please come to commission meetings and town halls. And then we are always posting on social media. So please engage with us there. And that is it.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, comments? No. All right, looks like we're good there. And then we will move to public comment. The guidelines for public comment can be found in our commission rules resolution. Comments should not be directed to individual commissioners. They should be directed to the commission as a whole, and all speakers shall be courteous in language and demeanor. So it looks like we have virtual public comment of Harry Branch signed up online.
Can you hear me? I've been thinking again about phytoplankton. And phytoplankton are tiny plants drifting around in the water. They're the predominant source of oxygen that we breathe. They're the origin of life on Earth. Oil and coal are basically phytoplankton that's been cooking in the earth for 1 million years. Anyway, I'm not real worried about phytoplankton. They were the first life form on Earth and they will probably be the last. I think that perhaps we should show phytoplankton a little more attention though, and especially here in Butt Inlet with the activities of the Port of Olympia. Phytoplankton are primary producers. They're the origin of the food web. I would like to see us become an integral part of nature rather than its master, or at least, thinking in that direction. And I believe those are the basic tenets of deep ecology. And all these things get very complicated, but they're also very interesting. And let's just pay phytoplankton a lot of attention. Anyway, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Branch. Is there any commission response to public comment?
Nobody else online.
Anybody signed up in the room?
No, she said there was a name. Okay, so we're good with public comments and we will move to our partner spotlight for Port of Olympia Community Advisory Committee. We're going to go over the story map with Bob Wobena for the Butt Inlet. I'm here, but I believe it's for the Butt Inlet.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Bob Wobena. I'm the chair of the subcommittee, which was the Reclamation Committee, which was the Bud Bay Committee, and now we are called the Environmental Stewardship Committee. So I think that's where we settled in on. And so when we refer to the various committees that we are participating on, it's the Environmental Stewardship Committee. But the focus is the peninsula area and the issues going on with respect to what the port's been working on, what's happened here, and what's being planned for. Sean Gilbertson is going to help me here. He's running the machine back there, and I'm going to do the overview of talking, but you can look at the screens in terms of what we have here. So we have our committee, which a number of our members and POCAC are here with me, and they're going to correct everything mistake I make and whatever I say. So That would be the final say when they shut up, and then we're all done with the presentation today. But when we started this, it was before the 5-member commission, it was a 3-member commission, and a bunch of other efforts to try to figure out what should be the presentation, what should we work on as part of the stewardship committee. And one of the key focuses was that frequently in the Olympia, Thurston County area, there'd be negative comments about what the port does or doesn't do. And frequently, those comments are based upon partial information, sometimes incorrect information, and sometimes they're just new changes that have taken place that changes the real results. So after a lot of discussion, we came up with a proposal that we put together story maps, and that's what we have now. We have 5 story maps, and we said, how do we tell the Port of Olympia story in a positive, constructive way and show all the good work that they've done over the last number of years? And so we have as you can see on the screen there's 5 story maps. There's the history one, basically. And then there's the follow-up is having to do with Cascade Pole project. Follow-up to that is a stormwater project, primarily on the peninsula, but the specific work that the port's done. And then there's the Bud Inlet reclamation. On that particular part, Sean is going to brief you on it rather than myself, because that's constantly changing. And then the last one is on seawater rise. So let's start with the first one on the history. And as I've already touched on briefly, is that one of our efforts was to try to provide enough pictorial history and background so that the new reader, the new observer of the port's activities, they get a pretty good understanding of really how did we get where we're at. So what you see on the screen right now is a history way back. This is a picture, not a photograph, of what the downtown and the port sort of looked like back roughly in 100 years ago. Next slide, please. So this is what it looked like 150 years ago. So basically, it was the mudflat outlet, the urban terminal tidal area of the Deschutes estuary and Bud Inlet. And continue on. So there, as time progressed, there we are in the 1911 Caroline Fail. So basically, slowly the port was expanding, or the port area was expanding, because the port wasn't even in existence at that time. So it's really the history leading up to what the port is now. Next slide. This is just some activity there. Shows that the port was already involved with the public. Next slide. Again, another pictorial of the slowly evolving peninsula, the shape of it due to dredging. Next slide. So 1922 is when the port came into existence. And so the important part of this message of 1922 is that everything that took place prior to that, much of what took place in the years shortly around that and after that, really wasn't led by the port. The port was basically started as an economic organization, not as a environmental stewardship organization. And so much of what existed there and the years after that were part of kind of just the evolution of an urban area. Tumwater, Olympia, Thurston County, Lacey wasn't in existence yet at that time. And basically, this is the early stages. Next slide. So slowly what began, it was really an industrial site. It's where a lot of construction took place, canneries, logging, all kinds of early stages of urbanization. Keep going. And then along in about 1950 was the creation of Capitol Lake. Here's a picture, as you can see, on the picture on the left, there is no Fifth Avenue Bridge on that. That was the original bridge across the Deschutes River and at the interface of where the current dam is. The middle picture is actually the lakeside view of the dam. And this is a view that very, very few people see it, unless you're out there in a rowboat or something to see it. What they see is on the other side where the salmon come and the marine waters are. And actually, this is not a dam. It's a sluice gate of sorts. Water flows over the top and water flows underneath the barrier. And so it really operates not like a traditional typical dam, even though we all refer to it as the Capitol Lake Dam. It's really a structure that has many purposes. Then on the right there, you can see the kind of the rough current picture of where you have both the Fifth Avenue and the Fourth Avenue bridges in place. Next slide. So here's really what the port inherited. So when we say port commissioners, why didn't you keep that site clean? This is basically you inherited all of this as industrialization of the peninsula. As you can see, it was very, very active. If you look at it closely, you can see a bunch of smokestacks for burning, TP burners. There's canneries in there. There's all types of industrial activity that's going on. That is basically the source of the legacy pollution that you're in the process now of cleaning up. So the key date, and this is the key date there, 1972. 1972 is when Federal Clean Water Act was enacted. That was the very first time when there were some federal laws that started to say, hey, you cannot just discharge wantonly into the waters of the state and of the nation. You have to worry about water quality. So that 1972 Clean Water Act was a key part of that established the rules. Next slide, please. So the transition into logging is they moved from the industrial pollution into logging activities. Next slide. Continue, next slide. And as a part of that, the dredging started taking place, the deepwater port started taking place, and the peninsula began to get larger. So then in the early 1980s is when the ring dike was put in to create Swantown. And that was when the current peninsula configuration was basically established. That pond there in the middle, right on the start there, actually, my family and I owned Fiddlehead Marina for 45 years. And we took over the outfall, the Fiddlehead outfall from the city in about 1982. And the outfall sediment there was very rich with primary waste discharges for many, many years from the city outfall. And we worked with this port and the city to remove that sediment from that sewer outfall and located it behind the ring dike. So that was actually the first public-private partnership that took place in some of the dredging projects. And that's just more configuration. Go next slide. Some more of the contamination. Next slide. And this is currently the peninsula as we sort of know it today. Next slide.
That's it for history.
This is why he's running it, not me, because he's jumping around to the different. So we're going to go to the Cascade Pool. Many people in the community know about the Cascade Pool, and that's really part of that industrial contamination that took place. And so the pictures that we had there. So the port, along with ecology and the previous owners of the Cascade Pool, put together an agreement to clean up that, and then the port assumed responsibilities, and they're currently still managing the Cascade Pool. So continue through the slides here. So as you can see there, heavy pollution, heavy industrial contamination. The port inherited that. The port did not create that. That's an important message that our slides want to convey. Again, more of the Cascade Pool cleanup, and so the kind of the significant construction and very expensive process of cleanup that's going on. And if when you have a chance to look at the story slides, there's more background story that's in there and on the agreed order and such, so you can read more of the challenges that the port has faced. Continue on. That's more of the cleanup of Cascade Pool. Continue on. So again, this is the site work that was done at the Cascade Pool, and as I'm sure all have seen it, it's capped now and it's under careful management by the port to intercept any seepage away from that site, to clean it up and treat it before it gets into the marine waters. Next slide. So that's Cascade Pool today. There's a bunch of people. So enjoying the North Port, and so the good work again that the port did in terms of the cleanup that they inherited from industrial history. Just some more pictures of that. Continue on. And again, more pictures of what the port has helped convert as these mouses bounce around there. You can see where the Cascade Pool site is or was, and what now is a public use area that's put back to a very good public use. Next slide. Okay, so that shows the cleanup that was taking place. And so our committee wanted to make sure, again, the history that I just summarized for you, that it shows the port, what they inherited, what they converted to usable Port Peninsula, and then how they cleaned it up systematically and to meet the 1972 Clean Water Act and the many laws since then. So, but a key part of that was stormwater. And we all know, it rains heavily in the Olympia area at times. And the stormwater runoff is a major source of pollution in your various waterways. So the port, my background is environmental engineer. So I'm early in my career, we used to, get rid of the water is the most important thing. Then we had to say, well, before we get rid of it, we got to treat it. And then when you get into treating it, now what do you do with it? So what the port did, they currently have a very modern, very sophisticated stormwater treatment system in two areas of the peninsula that are most important. One is the marine terminal, and the other one is the boat works. They're the two primary heavy-duty sources of potential contamination for the marine waters. And then the whole surrounding peninsula has other stormwater cleanup. So what the port did early on was it was all a combined system between the city of Olympia, the port, and Lot. And that the outfall there by Fiddlehead Marina, it was actually the raw sewage at one point, and then primary treatment, and then better treatment. And then once Lot took the wastewater discharge out of that, moved it out deeper into the waterway, then it still continues today as a stormwater system. When the port separated their system from the city system a few years ago, and the blue there you see is the deep water port area where the logging and any other water quality impacts that are coming from the port's industrial activities or shipping activities are potentially impacting the water quality issues. And so they separated that water from what was then prior to that flowing out the Fiddlehead outfall so that they could properly treat it. Next slide. So, and what that shows is actually, I asked staff to put it together a picture where all the stormwater outfalls are. And so every red dot there, at some minor outfall that's coming from those areas, not just from the port, but from the city and their surrounding waterway. So each one of them is what the staff is now looking at in terms of how do they make sure that water flowing out any of those outfalls, if the port are responsible for it, it's properly treated before it goes out there. City has many of those, some estimates around 80 of them in the Deschutes Parkway, Deschutes estuary area. And the port is actually ahead of the city in terms of proper treatment and disposal of your stormwater systems. Next slide. Again, that's just part of the view. And so all those stormwater discharges have to be controlled. And this story map in here, when the reader goes on and looks at it and reads the articles that go with it, it'll explain the methods of treatment that are going on and how and what they're doing to make sure that the port is doing a good job of taking care of water quality. This just another outfall. Next slide. Keep on moving so that all of this area is clean as first of all swept up to pick up most of the bark and everything else, and then all the water that runs out there goes through a treatment system. Next slide. Okay, so now Sean's going to give you a brief summary on this as to where you are with this project.
Great. And I'll just quickly say, Sean Gilbertson, for the record, environmental director. I just want to say that the Bud Inlet story map pages are pretty all-inclusive of where we are right now. And we intend to update those regularly. And I just encourage the commissioners to hop on and take a look around. And if you have questions or if you see the need for more information, please let us know. This will be a living document. And this is a nice teaser by Mr. Webina here to get you interested. Hopefully spend some time surfing around on it. So I won't go into the detail. I'll maybe just scroll through it real quick and then I'll turn it back over.
Right. We only spent a year on this, so telling you the story in 10 or 15 minutes is a challenge. So these are pictures of what the the reclamation project's all about, as Sean just indicated. And if you read and the public reads the story map system, they're going to get a lot of good information explaining how things are being handled. That's all the sampling that's been going on. Okay, so then we have our last slide, and that's the seawater rise issue. And, you know, life is complicated enough just to clean up the messes of the past and then deal with the rainfall through the discharges and such. But now we have the seawater rise issue and how the systems that we have designed and planned over the last 100 years now may be inadequate and inappropriate for what's going to happen in the next 50 years. So this is a joint effort by the city, by the lot, and by the port to basically how should we respond to the seawater rise issues that are going to impact the Port Peninsula and surrounding areas. And this is just a pictorial of that. Next slide. We'll move on through this here fairly quickly.
And Bob,
Yep.
real quick, there
Yep.
there is a link to the sea level rise
Oh,
response plan.
oh, yeah.
Here is kind of at the top, so if anyone wants to look at that.
Yeah, so one of the issues that I asked Sean to add to it, there's a link there about what are the alternatives for the port and the city to deal with the area down on the peninsula area and the along the boardwalk, because that's going to be impacted in a significant way. And the pictures we had up to this point, we didn't show that, but there's actually a link there on this slide that shows another alternative. And if the seawater rises a foot, 18 inches, 24 inches, different impacts on the port and what might exist there. And that's what Sean just referenced. And that's very, very informative, because the question is, what are you guys going to do on making decisions relative to the peninsula, you know, the new warehouse, anything you do, and anything that happens in the city in the northern adjacent to the peninsula, because all of those are going to have a significant different approach relative to stormwater management, just people management and street management. And so you're faced, but the story map, we've tried to put it together in a way so that you can go home and quiet of the evening, take a look at us and get a better feel of all this. So when your staff make presentations, it basically, you're a more informed commissioner. Next slide, we'll just go through this. These are just pictures. Keep on moving. There's a high water area. Keep on moving. This is a, we can stop in this one, and this basically, you can go back to the file, to the map later. But basically, this shows you under worst case conditions. The blue is where on a high peak tide peak seawater rise issue that could be inundated with water. And that's a pretty significant area of downtown Olympia and the port. And so what you do is going to impact the city, and what the city does is going to impact the port. That's why it needs to be a joint effort, and what LOD does. And so each of those basically identify some alternatives or some strategies. And I'm convinced that your staff is taking a good look at this. Again, my background's 50 years dealing with water rights, watershed management, storm management, a lot of other things. And so what I wanted to do is make sure that those pictures and those links basically are shared with you now, because it kind of hits you with reality of what you're faced with. And we all know you can't pack up the port and move it to the airport or some other place. You can't, the downtown isn't going to pack up and move away. They're going to have to build some kind of resistance area. And if any of you have traveled to the Netherlands and see this North Sea, how they hold back water there, you know, it's possible. And to do that, it's just a matter of what is the best strategy for this area. So in summary, our environmental stewardship committee, not a Bud Bay committee, our stewardship committee, basically now hand off to you and the staff a good working draft of the story map that we believe tells a correct story of what has happened in the past, what the challenges that you are faced with. And so that is our handoff as this part of POCAC to you for your own actions at that point. So with that, see if my fellow committee members have any comments to add to that, what I have said.
I just want to, I want to encourage the commission to, and staff to figure out how this will be, how we'll do this iteratively. So who will be responsible for making sure that we have the correct information in here on an ongoing basis. And I'd like to see the new committee structure. So we have environmental stewardship, economic opportunities, and public access weave their way through this whole thing so people can start seeing what the port does for the community instead of what the port doesn't do for the community, because this is a really good marketing tool. So I hope we can use it wisely and in an interconnected way.
Well, thank you, Sue. And thank you, Mr. Webman, for presenting. Very helpful. Any other questions, comments?
Just actually have a question for staff. So if this is vetted and looks good, is this going to be on the website under a certain section?
Yeah. Where did Sean go? I'm assuming the answer is yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, the whole point was to create something for the public that could help them learn more about the Port Peninsula and how it came to be what it is today.
Awesome. Well, it's absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Great,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ansel.
My understanding from the POCAC meeting, and POCAC can correct me or staff can also do that, is that and it's what Sean said, it's going to be a living document, but we don't have a process yet that has been developed and approved to actually propose and make changes, additions to this. And so that's something that's unfinished business.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, first, I just want to thank the POCAC members of the subcommittee for this work. This is incredible. It's more than I anticipated when we talked about this a year or so ago. And so the work that you've put into it is really, really valuable for us as commissioners, but I think for the whole community. And I know the expertise that the members of the committee brought to this. Bob mentioned his background, but you have people that understand ecology and biology and hydrology and sediment cleanup and all the things that happen here on the Port Peninsula on the POCAC. So to me, that speaks to what the POCAC is and can be for this organization and for the community. It can add real value. And as someone who was on the POCAC and was chair of the POCAC, I used to talk about the POCAC being a force multiplier. And I think that this is exactly what I've been talking about, is that the folks on this committee brought skills and experience that we maybe don't have internally, and added real value in this way. And then also brought a different perspective, because none of you are getting a paycheck from the port. You have no interest or reason to no one can question your motivations. You're doing this to educate your community. And I applaud you for that, but I also think that this is exactly what I've been talking about, is the POCAC being a force multiplier for the organization. My hope is that this is a living document, and that the folks in the community can see it as a source of objective truth. Because as former Commissioner Bill McGregor used to say, confusion reigns supreme. There's a lot of stories about the work that the port does, about the work that the port doesn't do, about the things happening on the peninsula or around Butt Inlet. And Bob, you said it many times, we need to get on paper what the truth is, so that there's a single source of truth. And I think that this is a beautiful start to that, and hopefully it continues to evolve over time and be added to. And just my last comment in that vein, I saw the list of partners and collaborators and other agencies at the bottom of the Sea Level Rise page. And my hope is that our staff can engage those other agencies, Department of Ecology, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, the county, to add to this story and to add their pieces of the story of Bud Inlet and the story of downtown Olympia, so that we can continue to expand this beyond just the focus on the port, but to really have, like we said, a single source of truth for the community about the issues affecting water quality and future land use and the economy as it relates to Bud Inlet. So I cannot express how happy I am to see this and how appreciative I am of all the work that you've done.
Great. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate the work as well. I'm excited to dive in. I just had one question for staff before you move to Commissioner Vasavada. For the sea level rise plan, I noticed it was updated in 2019. Have we heard, are we working with city staff to update that, or do we know if they're updating the sea level rise plan?
I will defer to Sean on that.
I'm looking for.
Yes, we continually work with the collaborative, the city and lot, to make sure that it's still relevant and current. We're really in the process now of executing the plan. So it'll be an adaptive management kind of thing. So if there is a need to edit the plan overall, then the collaborative will undertake that as well. But we're keeping a close eye on changing conditions and making sure that we're implementing near-term actions, mid-term actions, and 20, 30 years down the road, we're in a place where we can institute the long-term action. So it'll be a continuous process.
That's helpful. Thank you. And then Commissioner Vasavada, questions?
Thank you. Just a really big thank you to Bob Wobena and Sue Patnute and all those who served on this subcommittee. I hope, I don't know whether you truly feel that the story map is ready to hand over or whether it's an ongoing project of the POCAC. I do know that it was a lot of work, and it both by the volunteer members and then staff responding to inquiries from them. And I think this collaboration is really what we need for democratically elected port commissioners, because our challenge right now is communicating information effectively to the public about how we got here and where we're going. And I think it's a great role for the POCAC. So thank you so much. I hope you're not ready to pass a baton on, but rather to continue moving forward with your role in helping us articulate what we're doing. I think it's been a gap in our staff capacity, and I would love to see the POCAC continue. So I look forward to working with our POCAC liaisons on the commission to sort of come up with like what the 2.0 next thing is, and making sure that that story map is visible and can be reached very prominently from our website, so we can use it to not to market, to communicate with the people about the land we all live in. So thank you so much.
Great. Sounds like we're all in alignment that we want to continue the story map being used and somewhere as a marketing and communications tool. Well, thank you, POCAC. Oh, yes, go ahead. Comment.
Jim Thornton from the POCAC. I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank staff for their counsel, their guidance, and their technical work on this, because it's as much their product as it is ours. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate you calling them out. Yeah, thank you, staff. All right, so next we have our consent calendar. 3 of them today.
I always forget, do we need to pass the consent calendar, or was it passed with the adoption of the?
Yeah, I have a motion.
I move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Do I have a second? I can second that. So we have a motion and a second for the consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Session on consent.
If you want to have discussion first, you can before voting.
We're voting. Yeah, go ahead. Is there discussion?
It's more of a staff question, so I don't know. It's all right to ask staff to come up.
What?
I'm curious, or we can. I'm just hoping to, I guess, relate to the
Point of order, should we remove this from the consent calendar if there's going to be discussion?
Typically, yeah, you would have you can have discussion. In the usual order of things, could make comments on your own and then vote. I don't stop you from raising a question if you want that answered, but.
Okay, understood. All right, so go ahead with your question. It seems like we can do that.
All right, thank you. I was just hoping for an explanation as looks like for legal counsel, we're going from 540,000 to 705,000. I was wondering if this is typical for the port, because it looks like we've added over the course of a year from 100,000 to 705,000. And I know we have new council coming. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be, great savings. But I was just hoping for some kind of explanation because seems like quite a big jump.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. The increase is actually because it's accumulation over the 2.5 years, I think, since we retained Dixon Phillips Burgess. So the initial contract was for 1 year for an amount, I think it was 250,000. The second year was then added on to that contract, and I think that's what got us up to the 500,000+. And so as they've continued to work for us, the numbers have been additive. It's been under one single contract. And so we've had to add to the quote unquote not to exceed total in that single contract. So it's a cumulative number. It's not a per year number, if that helps.
Okay, and I've had concerns from the community that's 100,000 to 705,000, and that's not correct. It's 100,000 would be how would you describe it?
The 100,000 is simply to allow us this last space and room to transition to our in-house counsel. So we've only got $65,000 left in the contract. We would not be able to spend beyond that without commission authority. And so just in the event that we need that extra time as we're transitioning to our new in-house counsel, we wanted to have that extra bump. It doesn't mean we have to spend it or that we necessarily have a definitive plan to spend it. It just means that it's there in case we need it.
Awesome, appreciate it.
All right, so we've had discussion. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that everyone? Okay, thank you. All right, so next we have our advisory calendar. We have a freight planning update from Alyssa Gertler.
Good afternoon, commissioners. It is nice to see you and nice to have a chance to talk with you. Most of you know I'm the executive director of the Thurston Regional Planning Council, which is your friendly regional transportation planning organization. We're known as a metropolitan planning organization by the federal government. We do transportation planning for all of our transportation systems. We distribute federal transportation funds, and we do analysis, transportation modeling, population and employment forecasting. We publish this thing called The Profile with a bunch of cool demographic data on it. I think most of you know that. But I wanted to give you that context as we move into the freight mobility strategy conversation, because for as many years as TRPC has been around, which is almost 60, freight has been not really a central thing we've planned for. We've planned for cars and trucks and bikes and all kinds of ways that people move around in our system. But sort of singling out freight is a relatively new line of thinking for us in sort of the modern TRPC. So it's really important to have this conversation with you guys as we embark into it. So this is one that it feels like I'm preaching to the choir here at the Port of Olympia. Why does freight matter? It's a really key part of the regional economy. It affects not just one business, but a whole set of businesses and industries. Freight actually moves on the same streets that people move to school and work and home in. And decisions about transportation often involve trade-offs around moving freight versus moving people and moving other things. Again, I feel like I should get an amen from you guys on that one. And particularly Thurston County, right? We're located right on the I-5 corridor. We have a mix of movement that moves north and south through us, but also east and west amid us. Again, we have all kinds of different traffic that's happening besides just freight. The last bullet point says connections to freight generators. I would call that, we have a port. You guys are the freight generators, right? We're correct. What is the freight that is moving in and out and where is it coming from? And so your role is very significant as a freight generator. And so why now are we doing this? Well, frankly, we have a problem already. We need to get on it right now. Volumes are going up, development is happening, the demand is growing. And we know places like WashDOT are also looking at the freight system at a statewide level. Local jurisdictions are looking at it. And again, our specialty is making sure we're looking at a connected regional system that goes across jurisdictional lines. Again, this is just an illustration of sort of the purpose and need of the project. When you look at today's, this is 2023 data for truck travel time reliability. It's not very reliable for truck travel time. And so thinking about that, yes, Commissioner.
Can you just explain the numbers? Relative, 1.25 to 1.5 relative to what is?
Oh gosh.
And I can dig into the report to find out if I need to, but I see that the red on I-5 there looks like it's greater than 2x something.
It's a statistical thing, a ratio of the 95th percentile travel time to the 50th percentile travel time.
Okay.
That's
small
for the 5 time periods.
Okay.
I don't.
That was hard for me to read, sorry.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm not sure.
It's basically like a reliability ratio, right? Predicting how reliable it will be. And reliability is such an interesting question on the system, right? If you knew every day it would take you an hour versus some days it would take you 15 minutes and some days it would take you an hour, how would that affect your travel time decision making, which is what reliability is all about, right? If you know it's going to take longer every day, it's at least reliable than not knowing how long the trip will take. So what's the purpose of the freight project? One, just really getting this sort of up-to-date current picture of how freight is moving in our region. And then identifying where in the system we have key constraints and pressure points, looking at what are the future conditions for freight and the trends that we see. As you know, there are all kinds of things from drones and many other trends emerging in freight movement. And then really think about our role as a regional coordinator. Where can taking a regional approach do sort of what you guys were talking about before, the amplification, the signal boosting, where we can have more of a regional effect, trying to put our work together rather than going it alone. And then making sure that it's informing decisions, whether it's at our table or your table or local jurisdictions or at WashDOT, around where the investments need to be around supporting freight movement. Just to be clear, right, this is a nice regional system strategy. We're trying to set a policy framework that will inform future decisions. And it's very much a transportation system planning role, although we recognize that this is also a key economic development plan that needs to include our economic development partners. This is not replacing work that WashDOT is doing on their freight system or any local jurisdictions. It's not just a project list of capital projects that we all want to get, although it might lead us to that. And it's not calling out any specific facilities, right? So it's not going to say, hey, what do we think about that marine terminal? There are other conversations for that, clearly. And just, we're at the beginning of the project, so it's a really good time to consult with you all. We've sort of looked at sort of beginning existing conditions. We've looked at other freight strategies at the regional level. We've started having conversations with stakeholders at local jurisdictions, WashDOT. That's actually one of the questions I'm going to ask you guys in a minute, which is what stakeholders should be involved and how do you want to be involved? We started the conversation with our regional council and we have started outlining the goals. And I want to talk to you guys about the project goals as well. So we have, excuse me, 5 goals for the project. I'm going to go through each one of them, but I thought I would put them all up in front so you would know what they were. Actually, I didn't. My staff made this presentation. I'm actually borrowing it from him. You know that because you've already seen it twice, right? So the first goal is just understanding the current and future demand, really understanding what is going on now and what do the current system look like. The second one is making sure that freight can move reliably and resiliently. And I think this speaks again to some of the environmental conditions, as well as disruptions and things we know that affect our region. Third is safety, right? We want the freight system to be safe for both those moving freight and those interacting with those moving freight, and the communities that interact with freight movement as well. Our fourth goal is, again, getting this regional picture, building a regional network, understanding how the different pieces fit together across jurisdictions and across boundaries, recognizing that, you know, as Thurston County is not an island by itself, it connects to other places as well. And then, of course, the last part, which is let's not just have a plan that we can't implement. Let's have something that's implementable. Let's have action items. Let's have next steps. Let's have clear strategies and decisions that advance the priorities. So sorry. So I just had a couple of questions for you, which is, given your role at the port, are we describing the priorities right? Are we missing anything? Who should we be involving, including you, and how? And then what do you think a successful strategy would look like? Just quickly, here's where we're at the beginning. We're laying out the goals and vision. We're having conversations with you. By the end of this year or the beginning of next year, we'd like to have a consultant on board to handle the technical work and start working through the existing conditions, future conditions. And this project will take a couple of years to get it all done. That's all I have. I would love to hear from you on those questions or any other feedback you have. Thank you so much.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and or comments. One of the first questions, climate impacts of freight moving around and through our community. Is that one of the things being evaluated in this study, and how will that influence the recommended implementation?
Yeah, you'll see goal 2 is reliable and resilient freight movement. And in resilient, I think that's one of the key things we mean there is understanding that there are environmental impacts and implications in this region that we do have to think about. And, you know, just standing here and listening to the presentation about sea level rise, it's not hard to start thinking about the connections of what might need to be considered in a freight system. And so, yes, it's absolutely part of it. You know, it's a transportation system focused plan. So, you know, we'll take it from that angle.
Sure. But emissions from internal combustion engines are a huge part of our climate impact in Thurston County. And so just wanted to know that that's part of what is being evaluated here, what opportunities there are to make progress on that. While evaluating the regional freight mobility system. Kind of in that vein as well, a lot of what I'm seeing is focused on truck traffic and on the road. And you talk about trade-offs and safety. And to me, every opportunity that we can take freight off of the roads that our families are traveling on and put it on rail or put it on the water or put it in the air, there are potential safety and climate and all kinds of benefits to that. And so I wonder how that's being evaluated, because most of what I'm seeing just from the images is trucks and roads.
Right. And I actually think that's exactly why I'm standing here in front of the Port of Olympia today, to sort of make these connections between the roadway system and the other intermodal connections around rail and marine, to make sure that we're actually getting this sort of complete understanding of current and future freight as we build out a system. And as we say, what are the investments we need or the things we need to consider in order to move freight, that those issues rise up, right? And to your point about climate, right? We have a regional climate strategy. You guys are all well aware of that. Again, the opportunity to link this regional policy with that regional policy to say, what are the intersections of the things that actually rise to the top in both of these that we need to prioritize, I think is a good reason for TRPC to be able to be the table to have this kind of conversation right now.
Yeah, great. Well, I never want to miss an opportunity. So as you're talking to the folks that are signers to that regional climate strategy, just remind them that I want the port to be included in that. And so it would require a little bit of editing of the document for us to be able to be signers to that as well.
appreciate your leadership, Commissioner.
But you can feel free to remind them.
Thank you, Commissioner Ansel.
I just wanted to impart, give some information that on the Transportation Policy Board, we have gone over a lot of this. We actually didn't get into the freight quality because we ran out of time. But it is an intermodal transportation system, and they definitely include, well, there is pedestrians and bicyclists, although I pointed, and then cars and trucks. And I pointed out that bicycles really are a vehicle in legal terms. And so they shouldn't be lumped together with, but they lump them together because it's active transportation. It's where it's actually human power that's moving them. And so, so I think that, and I have also made certain that we are considering the role that the port does play, that water transportation would be included. And mostly the water transportation would be most likely to be needed if there is a big natural disaster, like an earthquake or something along those lines, or and so that's what, but the port is definitely, it is in the mix, but it's not going to be, a lot of what we've been looking at is how to ensure that there are not big blockages in the freight moving through. And that is what happened, like when there was the Amtrak train derailment at the curve by DuPont. And so you have to look at where are these possible choke points and how can we effectively and environmentally sustainably, get things around them. And so that's a lot of what is going into, and that's why it takes a long time to look at all of the possibilities and all of the responses that can be made, and what kinds of chains of reaction are going to result and so forth. Did I say it? I mean, is that accurate? Was I?
It's nice to know that our Transportation Policy Board members are paying attention to our presentations and being able to report back to their bodies what it is the conversation is about. So thank you for that. Do you think that's an accurate representation of the conversation we've been having?
And I'll just ask for that number 4. What would success look like for the strategy? Just to kind of go over the ultimate purpose, what will likely happen. Is this correct? The report will be issued, and it will help with future grants and future projects if it can identify and prioritize the constraints and pressure points.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key outcomes, is really being able to hone in on a set of regional priority investments that we all say, regardless of whether we're the port or whichever jurisdiction we might be, that regionally, these are the things we really need to make sure we ask the feds for and the state for, and are the priorities where we can, all support each other on that. But I also think there's a policy outcome that comes out of this, which is just like we have a climate plan, just like we have a bike plan, just like we have a safety plan. When we have a regional freight plan, it becomes a tool that informs all the other policy decisions. So when we're thinking about bicycle movement, or we're thinking about a safety plan, we're thinking about what are the implications for freight? What does the freight policy say as we make other decisions? And so I think that's key for us, is that it becomes sort of a thread woven into transportation system planning and policy as a whole at the regional level in a way it hasn't yet. But yes, also getting money for projects.
Great. So yeah, I would just agree with Commissioner Hanson that climate should be a key driver of this. I think it's really important that should be one of the first questions that we're asking, because there's just going to be no point in moving freight around, if we don't have a planet at some point, and that's where things seem to be going. So it's really important that it's just number one when we're looking at these things. What would success look like for me, or to me, for this strategy would be looking for those grants with the federal government where we're decarbonizing, we're transitioning to alternative fuels, looking at drones. I love that you said that. Other examples of electric technologies that we can use to just reduce greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible.
Well, I really like that sort of innovative lens on moving freight because I think you guys are perfectly positioned and we can be your partners in what are some of the cool funding sources, grant opportunities, new ways to actually think about moving things around in a new way. And so love that feedback. And I think we'll definitely want to see that as part of our success.
Awesome. And then Commissioner Vasavada, questions, comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a backward-looking question and a forward-looking comment. May I do both?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I have the pleasure to serve on TRPC. I understand that we have not historically done this freight planning. I also understand that this was sort of, when you came in as executive director, you had inherited this as sort of something that had long been on the wish list, but had just finally made it to the top to get funded. Can you tell us anything about how this freight study got to the top or was selected as a priority for TRPC prior to you arriving there to take the helm?
Yes, I will talk about things that happened before I arrived on the scene, and see whether you believe I'm accurate or not. Here's what it is we every year do a regional work program, essentially the Unified Planning Work Program. TRPC and the Transportation Policy Board are involved in essentially laying out all of the activities we're going to do with our federal money over the time period. So every transportation planning project we want to do in the region, there's the required stuff that we have to do, and then there's always a list of stuff that we want to do. And it's kind of our list of unfunded projects, and many things end up on this list of unfunded projects. And then on the list of unfunded projects, we go try to write grants, we go lobby the legislature, we meet with partners, and sometimes we find funding for projects that are somewhere on the unfunded list. And this is one of those projects that had been on the unfunded list, and through WSDOT, we were able to receive funding and a grant to move this project forward. So it moved off the unfunded list of things we want to do into the funded list of things we are able to do. So that's how it moved up, and that happened all basically in 2024 and 25 before I arrived on the scene. But that's often how things move through the sort of regional transportation planning work program, is we identify priorities and then look for the funding opportunities that match those priorities. So
in that case, I would appreciate seeing the scope of work or whatever was the proposal that got the funding. I'd like to be able to take a walk down just to understand kind of how this was originally conceived. And then I appreciate your consultation with the port. And in the looking forward, I would echo and reinforce both Commissioner Hansen and Commissioner Montano's observations, which is that I think for us, we have an outsized role we can play as a government here, where it's the private sector that is, of course, deciding to use things and do truck transport, but we could make strategic investments and implementable freight investments. The only way we would be able to make decisions of what's strategic and implementable would be if we had real understanding of the carbon impacts and the criteria air pollution impacts. So I don't see that as like an extra. I see it as essential to this look to help justify our role as a government in sort of making any infrastructure investments that actually help with moving freight in a way that protects the public health and welfare.
I'll just say that's a super helpful comment to sort of get consistently across the Port Commission here in terms of what lens you want to make sure is brought to the work to define the successful outcome. So it's really nice to hear that across the board from you all.
I would just say that she articulated my thinking better than I did. So if you want to make that known.
All right. I think that's all our questions and comments. Thank you so much, Mr. Gertler.
Thank you so much.
Yes. All right, Commissioner reports. Commissioner Unsold, do you want to start?
Well, I will start by, this in some ways is a little bit under other business, because we did receive an email today from Janet Witt, and she said that she was hoping that she was going to be able to make public comment, and she attached 2 photographs of 2 pages of a 2007 evidentiary letter that was submitted by Weyerhaeuser. And one of the thing that is highlighted is that Weyerhaeuser was not going to debark their logs on Port of Olympia property, that there would be some some incidental bark coming off when they were loading them and unloading them and so forth. And so that would have to be taken care of. And so my question is, between 2000, when did the decision get made by Weyerhaeuser to debark the logs? And so is this evidentiary letter moot? And that's something that I know that I imagine an immediate answer cannot be given, but that I would certainly appreciate getting one.
I appreciate your recognition of that, Commissioner. I was going to say that we'd be happy to look into that and get back to the commission on that question.
Okay.
We'll see if there's any additional public comment after commissioner reports too. More info on that. Chair Tumpats?
So I did several things. So I think Doc Smith did mention summer nights at the fort, so that was fun. I was able to kick it off. I still need to work on my public speaking. I said mispronounced the lead singer, Leroy instead of Leroy, but it was fun. I appreciate the opportunity. I went to the Yelm Chamber. I've had to miss it a lot because it conflicts with my work schedule as a teacher. So it was really fun to meet everybody. I had some good conversations with City Council Member Kaminsky and Commissioner Rachel Grant. And also, I also tried to go to a JBLM event. We do get occasional invitations. So I've had two, but I've been unable to get on the base. So I go to the visitor center and they do not have a list of attendees. So I'm going to do some research on that and figure out how I can get these people to let the visitor center know that I'm an attendee.
We'll do the same.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Vasavada?
Thank you. I have no new reports. I would love to hear from people who were able to attend the commissioner seminar training last week. And also, I think I heard Commissioner Chimpas mention that he has an assignment that he can't regularly make because of his work schedule as a teacher. I think we should do some check-in with Alex about what we are able to be making and not making, and make sure that we have sort of a delegated number two, or maybe even rework our committee assignments. I think another one is the POCAC, figuring out who's able to be there in person. So I would encourage folks to kind of do a check-in with Alex, and maybe we can shuffle things around, not during summer, but after the summer ends. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. For my commissioner report, I was going to mention the WPPA seminar, so that's perfect, Commissioner Vasavada. It was a great seminar. I learned a lot about fruit trees and technology. Those were some of the main topics. And then for our commissioner report, or for our port report, I should say, I gave that and discussed our marine terminal as our win, and then our communication with the public and our strategy that we're developing is our thing we're working on for the year. And yeah, I think that's all I had. The chambers have been off this month, so I haven't attended. Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, I attended the Tenino Chamber meeting, and just have to say that as a community, they're punching above their weight class in terms of the number of activities and events and things that they're doing. So it's always fun to spend some time down there with the folks in Tenino. Also, as was mentioned, was able to attend the Lake Fair Parade with some other commissioners, and it was super fun that my son was allowed to ride in the parade with me. That was super cool. But the one thing that I do really want to make mention of was I was able to attend an event at the Evergreen State College Longhouse, which was put on by Maritime Blue and maybe some other partners with the state, but it was a presentation about the Squaxin Tribal Maritime History Project as part of the work of Maritime Blue, and that was on the 16th. It was really interesting. The work is available online, but it's been a a history project, a story map, if you will, kind of thing like we saw earlier, about the history of about the maritime history of the Squaxin tribe, which is closely related to the area and the current work that we're doing. So it was fascinating and was really worth the time.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to, I asked a question, but in terms of my activities, I did attend the POCAC meeting and I have been attending all of the POCAC meetings in person. So Jerry and I have been sharing the delegation of that. And I did that because I didn't go to the commissioner seminar and WPPA put on.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move to additional public comment. Looks like we have one more comment online. Lee Reiner.
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciated the TRPC presentation tonight on a regional transportation plan, freight issues. I note that there was very little discussion about railroad access to the port. I know that the rail line does go to the Port of Olympia Marine Terminal, and many of us are concerned about climate change, as was mentioned, how the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions will affect climate change issues and how much our county is participating in these emissions or not, greenhouse gas emissions. Many of us are aware that these huge ships that come into the Port of Olympia have huge footprints, greenhouse gas emission footprints. Tons and tons of diesel fuel is combusted to operate these huge vessels to come in from the Pacific Ocean through Juan de Fuca, all the way down from Seattle to Port of Olympia. And the greenhouse gas emissions are very, very large. So if we are looking at a freight plan for TRPC, many of us have questions how they could factor in these huge diesel emissions, thousands and thousands of gallons combusted to bring these loads all the way down to the bottom of Puget Sound. Seems very problematic. Many of us have been advocates for the railroad, for the rail lines to be developed, and we're hoping that TRPC goes forward with more discussion of rail. One other quick issue regarding bringing these huge ships down from Juan de Fuca down our Salish Sea to Port of Olympia to the Bud Inlet is that it is a living waterway. We have all kinds of critters. We have whales, we have orcas, we have dolphins, we have all kinds of birds and fish. And we know that these animals, these critters are affected by these ships coming down. And so when you look at regional freight transportation plans, you're looking at a living waterway. It's not tarmac. It's not a I-5 freeway. No, it's a living waterway that will be affected by any more huge vessels that come down from Seattle all the way to Port of Olympia. So we hope that TRPC factors that issue in, the environmental issues, the environmental costs of using our waterway as a way that to move freight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Looks like we are at meeting announcements.
Just a response to public comment.
Oh,
Carla has her hand raised as well.
okay, we'll go to Carla Wolfsburg.
Asked.
We can't hear you yet, Ms. Wolfsburg.
Or I don't know why she's not speaking. She's lowered her hand.
Okay.
All right.
We will move to commissioner response to public comment. Commissioner Henson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing that, while it's absolutely true that ships have large emissions on a ton for ton basis, they're the most climate efficient way to move cargoes. Moving those same cargoes by train or truck have larger emissions. So just want to make sure that we're getting our information there. You, yeah.
Yes. Can I make a few comments?
Well, yeah, if you can allow it.
Public comment time.
Okay, yeah, it's still additional public comment time. Go ahead.
My name's Betsy Norton. I live in Olympia. I just wanted to make a couple of reflections on what I heard today. And one thing is that, first of all, freight that isn't sourced, that has goods that aren't sourced here and goods that aren't consumed here, doesn't have any secondary economic benefits. And I would hope that you would think about that when you're thinking about facilitating it, because otherwise we just get the emissions and stuff like that and nothing good. So the other thing is that when I'm looking at the history of the port, while it may reflect what you guys think of as the Port of Olympia's history, it also ignores there's nothing there about any of the tribal history here in Bud Inlet, and there's nothing, just echoing Lee Reiner, there's nothing in there about the ecosystems. And if you want to ever expand the scope of what you think might be an economically viable strategy to doing any kind of environmental tourism, you might want to consider adding a chapter for this could be a great success story if you were successful in Bud Inlet and all the birds and the flora and fauna came back. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other commissioner response to public comment?
The hand raised again. Don't unmute.
Carly, yes, go ahead, comment. I can't hear anything.
He's been asked to unmute.
It seems like your microphone is not working tonight. Sorry about that. Please feel free to email your comment in. And then we will move to other business. Oh, nothing. Okay. Meeting announcements.
Alrighty. Right up. All right, coming up on Monday, August 10th, we'll have our next regular commission meeting that will be at the Tenino City Hall. The location is there on the screen. You can also find it on our website. That will also start at 4 p.m. On Monday, September 14th, the commission meeting is tentatively going to be held in Grand Mound, Rochester. There's a couple of details we're nailing down for that one, but get ready for potentially going to Grand Mound, Rochester in early September. On Tuesday, September 15th is the Community Advisory Committee meeting, and that will be the first meeting, I believe, that will have the new POCAC members appointed. And then on Monday, September 21st, there's a commission work session. I will add one brief amendment. On Monday, August 3rd at 4 p.m. we are going to continue the work session that we started, I believe it was last week, to continue talking about our operating business units and the capital investment plan. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, with that, we will adjourn.
Like a ball.